On the day we were supposed to start our honeymoon, he surprised me by giving me papers that said he wanted a divorce. He said he was taking his whole family on the trip, and if I didn't like it, we could split up. Inside, I was furious. Okay, fine, I thought to myself. But remember, I'm still free. He looked shocked as I stood there feeling triumphant. My name is Emma. I'm 35 years old, and I work at a real estate company. I really enjoy my job and feel happy doing it. I'm lucky to have supportive colleagues, but in my personal life, I don't have any specific hobbies and I've never had a boyfriend. I felt a secret worry growing inside me. All my friends were getting married by the time they hit 30, one after the other. I was one of the few left who was still single. Plus, my younger colleagues were leaving our company one after another, and it hurt every time. Then, I met Brian through a friend's introduction. He was 2 years younger than me and had a smile that made me feel warm and protective. He didn't talk much but always listened to what I had to say when we needed to make decisions. He made me feel like my thoughts mattered. Since I had no experience with relationships before, I quickly fell for Brian's personality. Our relationship progressed smoothly. When I brought up the topic of marriage, he simply said, "Okay, let's do it." Marriage involves making lots of decisions: the wedding, the honeymoon, finding a new home to live in together. It's a huge event in a person's life, so I wanted us to decide things together. But no matter what decision we faced, Ryan always let me take the lead. He never shared his own thoughts. He just agreed with whatever I said. Brian's personality began to seem unreliable to me, and I started feeling unsatisfied with him. Another thing bothering me was my relationship with my mother-in-law. She was completely different from Brian, not easygoing at all. She never listened to my opinions and always imposed her own ideas on me. "Emma, when you get married, you'll quit your job and focus on taking care of the house, right? You're not getting any younger, you know. If you don't hurry, you might not be able to have kids. Brian is working hard, so as a woman, you should focus on the family. It's a wife's duty to support her husband." These were the first things she said to me when I went to greet her. The husband works outside and the wife takes care of the home. She clung to old-fashioned ideas like this. The truth is, I earn more money than Brian does. He doesn't seem to mind, and he's even told his parents about it, but his mother doesn't seem to approve. A woman who earns more than a man isn't charming. Maybe you can't do any household chores, can you? A wife should cook, do laundry, clean, and take care of her husband's health. Can you do that? She said, looking down on me. You're right, it's definitely different when it's your mother-in-law saying those things. While it's not something to boast about, I can handle all the household chores because I've been living alone for a long time, and I don't plan on quitting my job after getting married. I want to prioritize myself just as much as Brian. But when my mother-in-law criticized me, Brian didn't stand up for me. Instead, he just nodded along with her. That made me feel uneasy about relying on him for the rest of my life. But then again, Brian is younger than me. Maybe he'll become more dependable as he gets older. If this marriage doesn't work out, I might never get married at all. My mind is torn between anxiety and desires, stuck in an endless conflict. But time doesn't wait, even when I'm troubled. There are so many decisions to make for the wedding. Where to go for the honeymoon, arranging time off from work, and more. The to-do list keeps growing, and it's making me feel even more uneasy. I was juggling busy days, preparing for both work and marriage. One day, I talked to Brian about our plans. Considering our work schedules, we can only take a long vacation at this time. So should we have our honeymoon during this period? I asked. Yeah, that sounds good to me, Brian replied. Both of us had similar quiet periods at work, so this was our only chance for a long vacation. But there was a problem with the wedding. The venue I've always dreamed of is so popular that it's booked for over a year in advance. In that case, what do you think about having the honeymoon before the wedding? I checked, and some people do that. If we have the wedding first, it will be another 2 years before we can go on the trip. If you're okay with it, Emma, then I'm fine with it too, Brian said. I thought Brian wouldn't object, but he agreed so easily. It seemed like he was accepting all my opinions without any resistance. While I did want him to express his own thoughts a bit more, I figured it was better than facing opposition. So whenever I got the chance, I kept moving forward with the preparations for our honeymoon and wedding. In the end, we settled on going to Europe for our honeymoon. I debated until the last minute between Hawaii and Europe. Hawaii was close by, and I figured we could visit there another time. So I chose to explore Italy and France, enjoying the beautiful streets and delicious food. I also wanted to check out the stylish accessories and maybe buy some special tableware since it marked the start of our new life together. After considering various schedules and destinations, I finished all the paperwork about a month before the trip. By then, I was completely excited. It was going to be my first overseas adventure, and I couldn't help but feel thrilled. My mind was consumed with thoughts about Europe, from buying travel essentials to planning our activities there. Because of this excitement, any lingering dissatisfaction I had with Brian had disappeared completely. Just 1 week before our honeymoon, Brian suddenly brought up a conversation. I was puzzled by Brian's unusual request. He rarely asked me for anything, so I was curious about what it could be. Could it be related to our trip? Did he find a place he wanted to visit? I was filled with anticipation as I asked him, "What's wrong?" Brian innocently made his request, saying, "I want to go see Taylor when we're in Paris. Mom really wants to go there." I was taken aback. "Your mother-in-law?" "Wait, what do you mean?" I couldn't keep up with this sudden turn of events, but Brian seemed to think it was obvious. "Well, since everyone else is going, we'll all be together even during the trip, right?" "What do you mean by everyone?" "It's our honeymoon, so it's obvious that it's just you and me going." "But my mom thinks it's normal for the whole family to go," Brian explained. "First of all, I only made reservations for 2 people. You and me, Brian. The deadline for booking was 7 days ago. Today is the last day to register. Whether we go together or not, I only booked for 2 people, so it was impossible for the whole family to join. If you ask the travel agency, they might be able to sort something out," Brian suggested. I was stunned by Brian's statement when suddenly, the intercom in the house rang. On the screen, I saw my in-laws. Without any regard for my surprise, they entered the house with a load of bags. Ignoring my objections, my mother-in-law's eyes sparkled as she declared, "I thought I'd leave the luggage here since we're leaving soon." "I'm so excited." Brian chimed in, "Just leave the luggage here," and began leading them into the room without asking for my consent. "Wait a minute." I tried to stop him urgently, but my mother-in-law shot me a sharp look. "What's the matter, Emma? I hope you're not suddenly saying you don't want to go together now." "I never agreed to go together in the first place," I retorted, but my mother-in-law paid no attention. "You heard it, she just said no, didn't you?" "But Brian always thought we would go together with you, right?" she asked, trying to flatter Brian. Brian simply replied, "Yeah," affirming her statement. Seizing on his agreement, my mother-in-law began to dismiss me. "It's normal for the husband's parents to go on the honeymoon. Don't you have common sense? I hope you won't ruin the trip with any unpleasant experiences since it's a special honeymoon. We want to make good memories, right? I'll make sure to teach you some common sense during this week before we leave. It's supposed to be a special honeymoon after all." I felt like everything was falling apart. My blood was boiling with frustration. "Mother-in-law, this is a honeymoon, you know. Normally, it's just supposed to be the husband and wife," I insisted desperately. If I listened to my mother-in-law's demands now, it would set a bad precedent for the future. I wanted to avoid that at all costs. However, my mother-in-law stubbornly refused to back down. Not only that, but she began to dismiss my concerns altogether. "The husband's parents going on the honeymoon together is just common sense. I can't believe you don't want to be with us. I thought we were becoming a family, but it seems our ideas of common sense are different. You don't seem to like me, and nothing seems to match." "How sad," she said, lowering her eyebrows in a fake manner. Her words, "how sad," seemed to have a hidden smirk behind them. I was convinced she was deliberately trying to trap me. That's how sure I was. Even Brian, without questioning, started blaming me based on my mother-in-law's words. "Emma, what's wrong with you? They're my parents. It's okay for us to go on the honeymoon together, right?" "It's not possible. We've already booked reservations for 2 people. Plus, I've never heard of families joining a honeymoon trip," I declared. Brian shouted angrily, as if looking for a fight. "I never realized you disliked my parents so much, Emma. That's enough, just leave for today," Brian said, looking at me as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. As he spoke, a wicked smile spread across my mother-in-law's face. Why does he always take his mother's side without even considering his spouse's opinion, especially at a time like this? I wished he would support my views. Before I could react to his words, I found myself pushed out to the entrance. Just before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of my mother-in-law's smug expression. Left outside, I felt powerless. Why am I being portrayed as the bad guy? Why does everything, even this special trip, have to be ruined? Frustration and sadness consumed me, and tears began to flow. A few hours later, I received a message from Brian. I want you to see if it's still possible for them to join the tour. If not, we'll cancel this trip and find a tour where all four of us can go. Please think rationally. If you reconsider, we can sort it out properly. I don't believe I'm in the wrong. It seems like there's no reason for you to apologize or respond. Brian hasn't contacted you since his last message, and it's likely he's upset too. Time passed, and the day of your honeymoon departure finally arrived. Despite feeling unable to enjoy it in your current state, you had spent a month preparing for this trip, so you couldn't refuse. As you were getting ready to leave, the intercom rang, and it was Brian coming to pick you up. You hadn't seen each other since the incident, so you didn't know how to act around him. His arrival indicated that he still intended to go on the trip, but strangely, he didn't have any luggage with him. Instead, he handed you divorce papers. After hurting my parents, you still planned to go on this trip, didn't you? He accused. I'm taking my whole family on this honeymoon. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. My mom said it would be better that way, he added, thrusting the papers in front of you. In that moment, you finally saw his true colors. You had thought he would listen to you and prioritize your feelings, that he was a kind person. But it turned out he didn't have his own opinions, and he put his family before you. That's who Brian truly is. As I came to that realization, my feelings for him began to cool down. Even if I were to marry him, I couldn't see myself overcoming the challenges that lay ahead and becoming a family with his mother-in-law. It just seemed impossible. Determined, I pointed at the divorce papers in front of me and said, "Sure, but remember, I'm still single, you know." "Huh?" Brian exclaimed, clearly surprised by my words. "Single? What do you mean? Weren't you listening? We talked about going on the honeymoon but delaying the registration until the day of the ceremony. I made sure to get your permission, Brian. You didn't forget, did you? The marriage certificate is still in the drawer, and you even said, 'If you are fine with it, Emma, then I'm fine too.' That's right, divorce or not, we're not even married yet. There's no problem with going on the honeymoon with my maiden name." Maybe you remembered my words. Brian's expression suddenly changed. But then he turned red and raised his voice in frustration. "Are you out of your mind to give up on marriage just because of a honeymoon? Get a grip." I responded, matching Brian's intensity with my own strong voice. "This is the result of me being rational. I've been so desperate to get married that I couldn't see reality clearly. I don't think I can be happy marrying someone who doesn't listen to their future spouse's opinions and doesn't support them. I'd rather stay single for life. Thanks for making me realize that. Haste makes waste." I keenly felt that this saying was true. "Hey Emma, let's calm down and start over from scratch, okay?" He looked like he was about to cry. His pleading voice trembled. "But I won't be fooled anymore. I will break free from this guy." Without realizing it, I found myself shouting loudly at Brian. "If you're so desperate for a family trip, why don't you go with your family of 3? But in return, you'll have to plan everything from the tour reservations to the itinerary all by yourself. After always relying on others, it's about time you experience the difficulty yourself. If you think you can handle it, go ahead, you indecisive man." I pulled out the marriage certificate from the drawer and tore it to shreds in front of Brian. His mouth hung open in shock at the sudden turn of events. Overwhelmed by my determination, Brian was completely taken aback. "Do you understand how serious I am now? I refuse to have a future that's dark. It's over between us. Why don't you go back to your beloved mommy and cry to her, you mama's boy?" Leaving a stunned Brian behind, I slammed the front door shut. Given his demeanor, he might actually go cry to his mother. I could easily imagine that happening. Afterward, I contacted the tour company to cancel our reservations. Since it was a same-day cancellation, we were charged 100% of the fee. I billed Brian for the entire amount since he was the one who ruined our honeymoon. It felt like the right thing to do. Later, Brian blamed me for the failed marriage and spread rumors about it to those around us. However, it seemed that no one sympathized with him among our relatives and coworkers. Instead, he started to be seen as an unconventional mama's boy due to his past actions and was disliked by many. When I told my parents about the divorce, they were initially surprised but quickly accepted it. Marriage isn't the only source of happiness. As long as you're happy, Emma, that's what matters. I couldn't be more grateful for my mother's words. As a side note, since then, my hobby has become traveling. I felt it would be a waste to let long vacations go to waste, so I embarked on my first solo trip. Going overseas alone was a bit daunting, but I enjoyed a relaxing time in historic cities I had always wanted to visit. Wow, being alone is actually quite enjoyable. Thanks to the historical adventure trip, I've started to fully enjoy solo traveling. Whenever I have time off on my next break, I'm planning to embark on my next overseas trip. I've begun a life where I won't let myself be controlled by marriage alone.